strong message, and really, hopefully it will change. And I think the Congress should stand up, pass the legislation talking about the tariffs. It's the job of Congress to tax, and tariffs are a type of tax. And everything, I hope Supreme Court has the guts to declare all these reciprocal tariffs as illegal, unconstitutional. It's the power of the Congress to do the legislation in that regard, and not three people sitting in the White House Oval Office to do it.
As you know, do you have a question for us, Congressman Azhar?
No, my question to him will be, when will the Congress, if you have an opinion, rebel or stand up and say, Mr. President, this is our job and we are going to do it, and then you have the right to sign it or veto it, but wait till then.
I will say that right now.
Okay.
Look, I think so the other day, the president rated himself on the economy. I don't know if you saw how he evaluated himself. He gave himself an A+++++ with regard to the economy. I've heard of price inflation, Dr. Barai, but I think there's grade inflation also. And I think that this particular assessment tells you how out of touch our president is with the concerns of the average person. Because as you know, the price of groceries is up, the price of gasoline is up, the price of housing is up, the price of healthcare is up, the price of childcare is up, and the price of education is up. And so when you ask the average person, how would you rate this economy, they would not give the same assessment that President Trump did. Instead, I think they would give it an F minus, 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 not an A++++. And so as a consequence, I think that he is going to be in for a rude awakening at the next election. And we are starting to see right now that different members of his party are starting to rebel on different issues. So for instance, with regard to tariffs, there is a group of Republicans who have now signed on to our legislation to reclaim our power under the International Economic Emergencies Act, the IEPA Act, to declare tariffs, okay? There's also a bipartisan coalition with regard to the Epstein files. There's a bipartisan coalition with regard to other issues, and Venezuela boat strikes, by the way. And so I think that even the MAGA base is starting to become a little bit concerned about where their president is going. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who better represents the MAGA base than Marjorie Taylor Greene? Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning rather than bowing to the intimidation of President Donald Trump. And so I think that there's a change coming, Dr. Barai. I think it's happening as we speak, but as the economy also continues to worsen, I think that change will accelerate.
$12 billion in last year, and India had a trade surplus of over $50 billion. If you compare with China, which is the second largest, $120 billion bilateral trade, but India has a trade deficit of $100 billion, which is massive. And by the way, China can never be India's friend. We have not forgotten what happened in Galwan, where 20 Indian soldiers were killed, and China is still sitting on India's land. India was
community. Specifically talking about the Pakistan and Chinese propaganda, and I don't know whether you have to get going, but if the Department of Justice can investigate that this is an act of bigotry, racial hatred against one group of Americans, I am as much an American as anybody else. So this propaganda generated by the Chinese and Pakistanis, if it can be investigated, I think I'll appreciate it.
What's going on in terms of law and order and the shootings, everything. I just want to ask, as a congressman, what will be your next steps to make sure the students in the university are safe And how safe today the students in the universities in America, and how safe are the people on the street, people in the mall? And economy is one side, but the law and order is another issue. Head rate is one side, but the safety of individuals, especially students, are very, very important.
Yeah, it's a good question. First of all, I hope that we all pray for the comfort of the families affected by the shooting at Brown University last night. 2 were murdered, and maybe 8 to 10 people are injured, and we pray for their full recovery. I think I would just point to a few things, okay? One is we do have a scourge of gun violence in this country, okay? There's a mass shooting every day on average, but it doesn't necessarily receive the coverage because it may not happen in the same fashion that it did last night at Brown University. But the reason for those mass shootings is the easy availability of handguns and other assault, and also assault weapons for anybody who wants to commit violence. That's the first point. And we must, as a community, but as a country, we must control with common sense gun regulations access to these weapons, especially keeping them out of the hands of people who should not have them. That's the first point. Second point is we have a mental health crisis in this country as well. And we have to acknowledge that. The mental health crisis has gotten worse since the pandemic. And it's really afflicted young people, among others, more than, maybe disproportionately more than we might otherwise admit. And as a consequence, we need to address that particular issue as well. And then the third and final point is we have to lower the temperature of the rhetoric that we use about each other. We may disagree with each other politically, but we can't in any way encourage violence. We can't in any way encourage extremist actions in service of that rhetoric, because believe it or not, people listen to you. And if they listen to you, they may act. And so we have to get away from this. So those are the 3 things that I say that we have to tackle and that I would tackle in Congress simultaneously.